Yeah, so this is not a technical discussion, just for 5-10 minutes. I'm just curious to know your answers. So let me ask this question and see what you say. Right? Okay. So let's say you are traveling in space and you meet an alien, right? So let's say you meet an alien, right? Right. And you meet an alien, and you have also figured out that the alien is not harmful, and you have figured out that yeah, alien is also trying to make friends with you, and he or she or whatever it is pretty smart, and somehow they are able to survive using CO2 and not oxygen, and they don't drink water and things like that. Right? So, what's the first question you'll ask the alien? Right? So, what do you want to know about the alien first? Do you want to know if the alien has a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or do you want to know whether the alien what's the favorite movie of the alien, or what do you want to exactly know about the alien? Let's say you are allowed to ask 5 or 6 questions about the alien. Will you ask about his parents, or what is that makes it curious for you about the alien? What will you ask about the alien? Any answer is fine. Any funny answer is fine. Anything is fine. But what will you ask about the alien?
Sir, are they able to communicate with you?
Yeah, let's say they are able to communicate.
Uh,
So will you ask who are your friends, who are your parents, or will you ask has the alien ever fallen in love and things like that, or is it
I
will it
will
be
ask that how to start a life there.
oh,
I mean, how to get an Aadhaar card.
oh, okay. Any other answers?
How civilized they are,
How
to what
civilized they
extent
are?
they are civilized.
Do you really think, I mean, think about it. You have met an alien, you have figured out that they work on CO2 and not on oxygen, and you are, I mean, they are much more like advanced than you. What, I mean, why do you ask whether they are civilized or not, right? So you will be more curious about their body structure and how they work and things like that,
may
right?
I ask, do you need to eat or do you
Yeah,
eat?
do you need to eat, right? So if you want to eat, what will you eat and how will you process food and things like that, right? Anyway, I mean, just think about it. There's no actual answer. Everybody has their own answers. Okay, now let's not meet an alien. Let's meet your friend from the mechanical department. Like let's say the mechanical department guy or a girl meets you, and you are this person. He or she meets you, and you ask him a question. Right? You ask him, can you tell me about the? Can you tell me about? Let's say, tell me about a car in general, right? So let's say you say that you ask him, explain me about the car in general. He will he'll start telling you things like, if I push this button, it will go faster. If I turn this steering this way, it will turn this way, and it's green in color, and it has these many cushions and these things like that, right? So he starts explaining about the outer features of the car, and you ask him the question, like let's say you ask him whether it's a diesel engine or a petrol engine, and he will tell you that it's diesel. And now you ask him, how does this diesel engine work? Then he will say, no, I don't know how this works. It's just that when I push this particular paddle, it will just go fast. And if I push these levers, it will somehow climb the mountain or doesn't climb the mountain. Now, will you be impressed by his skills or not? He knows everything about the car except that how the engine works. But are you okay with that? Do you still call him a mechanical engineer? Uh, or the other way around, right? He comes and asks you the question, can you tell me something about the computer? And you show him that, okay, I have these many numbers, and I have built a extremely good algorithm where it can sort all these numbers in, say, 10 seconds. And you show him of his skills, your skills, saying that this is how the sorting happens. And do you think he will be impressed by you? Right? He will be more interested in how is this. If I am an outsider, I will be more interested in how is this guy. I mean, how is this machine actually sorting it, right? So I don't know. I mean, that's the more curious level, right? Rather than saying, okay, I written a program, I don't know what happens in the black box. Maybe it is made up of silicon, or maybe it is made up of some jelly or something. I'm not worried. It is just somehow it's able to sort these numbers. So when somebody asks you how the computer works, is it okay if you answer? It just sorts the number, it just adds the number, it displays a web page, it displays this and that, right? No, I don't think so. If the mechanical engineer would have answered you that this is all I know about a bike that I can raise up the accelerator, it will go fast. I can switch on the paddles, it will go up, it will be able to climb the hill or not. But he doesn't know how he or she doesn't know how the engine works, then you will not probably call him mechanical engineer, right? You might call him or you might be impressed by his driving skills, racing skills. You might call Michael Schumacher the best racer of the world, right? But you will not call him the best mechanical engineer, right? So, and if you ask him the difference between 2-stroke engine and 4-stroke engine, and he tells you that buy a 4-stroke engine because everybody buys that, and since 4 is greater than 2, maybe buying 4-stroke engine is better than a 2-stroke engine. Would you be happy with that answer? Maybe no, right? So if somebody comes and asks you, should I buy a 4 GB RAM or an 8 GB RAM, you just say 8 is greater than 4, so why don't you buy an 8 GB RAM processor? It doesn't make sense for him. Right? So I mean, that's where CEO comes in. Whether you are interested in the subject or not, since you are a computer science, we are making you a computer science engineer, not a web developer or a programmer. Right? We are not giving you an BE in programming or BE in web development or BE in machine learning. So it's a BE in computer science, which means that you at least should know how a computer. According to me, if you allow it to me, I would say we should be teaching you also how when you fabricate, how the fabrication of a chip happens. It's a very beautiful thing to know. Unfortunately, I think the elective is not yet open to you, but someday it might be open for your juniors, where we will be only talking about VLSI technology, where how fabrication happens, how people keep talking about silicon. Yes, silicon is sand. So how does the sand get converted to bits, ones and zeros? What is the difference between CMOS and PMOS? And how the CMOS is actually built on, and how are the logic gates realized? And from logic gates, how is the actual computer realized? Of course, we have started with assuming that you know logic gates and building the system. We are at a very fairly, according to me, some of you might call this as the least bit of level or the bottommost level. According to me, we are somewhere in the mid. The actual level, you should be at least knowing what does it mean to say that people keep saying that from sand we have built computers, but what does it mean to say from sand you have built computers, right? And it's such a beautiful machine, right? It has only ones and zeros. You have so many numbers, but you are so slow, but the computer is so fast. So how is it able to achieve so much power and so much performance and things like that? Right? So this should excite you. If it doesn't excite you, think about it, right? So think about what is the answer that you will give somebody when somebody somebody appreciates that you are a computer science engineer, but you don't know how the sorting of the numbers happen. So that is fairly, according to me, a fairly bad position to be. I mean, is there anything else that you want me to teach? I am ready to teach. I can start from PMOS, CMOS. As I said, I love that technology, but I think that's fairly out of syllabus. But at least try to learn CO so that it will give you some confidence to do that. It's not about just about saying, okay, I learned CO. You don't ask the question like, will I be using assembly programming, right? It should not matter to you whether you will be using assembly programming in future in your career or not. But if you understand assembly language, you'll actually understand how a compiler works and why the compiler is struggling so hard to make things easier for you. Things like this. Yeah, I mean, there are, of course, benefits of learning CO. I'll just pause my recording in the class. Okay. So we were discussing about branches, and we said that the branch has an issue with the branch penalty and things like that, right? So we said, okay, how do I, where was it? Okay. So I hope even if you did not understand this part, you understood till here, right? So why if I have a sequence of instructions, why there are two different execution paths, and in the instruction fetch, I don't know what to fetch, so I have a stall, and then I can reissue the instruction fetch, or I don't have to, either I have to do the reissue of the instruction fetch, or I do some kind of prediction, and depending on my prediction, if the prediction is right, I continue the execution. If the prediction is wrong, I say, okay, don't continue the execution. So I hope this is clear. If this is clear, we'll go to the next step. If there are doubts, please feel free to ask me. Okay. So now we will ask the same question, but you know that when I write a C program, let's say I wrote program.c, I run it through a compiler. So I run it through a compiler, and then I create an assembly or executable. Right? So it's assembly, and then the assembler will actually convert it to executable. Let's say it's an executable that you actually have. So now we were doing this handling branches, right? Once the executable is done, we have the processor. So we were handling the branch penalty at the processor level. At the hardware level, we were saying, can we do something such that there is no penalty, right? So maybe we want to do some kind of prediction. We said that the branch is taken, and we do some kind of prediction and say, okay, if the branch is taken, we'll do this. If the branch is not taken, we'll do this. So now the question is, can the compiler do something? Can the compiler assist something such that there is no branch penalty? So the question is, can compiler do something when it's creating the assembly instructions? Can compiler do something such that there are no branches, so that there is no penalty for some of the branches or all branches, penalty or less penalty for branch instructions? So how many of you think the answer is yes? Can compiler do something such that there is no penalty, or you have reduced the penalty of a branch instruction? So can compiler do something about it?
Yes, sir.
What can it do?
Suppose you have two dependent instructions, one after the other, and you have some other independent instruction somewhere else, and you can input them in between these two dependent instructions.
Yes, right. So yeah, it's let's say I have an add instruction. You don't even have to have. Let's write this, right. So let's say I have an add R1, R2, R3, and then I have an if statement, right? Let's say I have an if statement. So it's a branch instruction, right? Let's say I have if. So this is my target. So now can I do something, right? So this is my sequence of instructions. Can the compiler do something? In this case, can the compiler do something? So there is no dependent instruction, nothing here. Do you think that the compiler can do something here? So what is the issue, right? The issue is that there is one cycle delay here. I know that there is one cycle delay here. And why is there a one cycle delay here? Because this is a branch instruction. See, this is a branch instruction. This is a branch instruction. And there is a one cycle delay because I don't know what to fetch. Should I fetch this instruction? Right? So do I fetch this instruction, or should I fetch target? Should I fetch target or not? Right? So should I fetch the target or say some instruction X? So that's why there's a delay, right? So now can the compiler, so of course I can just give this to the processor, and the processor will say, the processor will execute this add, this will process, the processor will execute this if instruction, and maybe there's a branch prediction that is happening, and maybe it might fetch X, or maybe it might fetch target. If the branch prediction, let's say the branch, there's some prediction, and you will go and fetch this. And if I know that I have gone in the wrong direction, then this will crash it and fetch the target address, right? So this we have already been seeing, right? So if there is, if I allow the execution to continue, so this will be the first instruction that will get executed. This will be the second instruction that will get executed, and the third instruction, it will go and fetch this instruction, this X instruction, and it will do an instruction fetch for this X instruction. But at a later point of time, it figures out that the branch outcome is R4 was 0. So it will go to the target, right? Which means that you have a penalty of one cycle. We just write it down so that it's clear. Right? So let's call this as instruction 1, instruction 2, and this has instruction 3, and this has the target instruction. Right? So now I have the pipeline something like this. So I have instruction fetch, instruction decode, execute, memory, and write back. So this is the instruction 1. Then I do an instruction 2. This is the branch instruction. I do everything here, execute, memory, and write back. Then I allow the processor to continue fetching the third instruction. So it fetches the third instruction. At this point in time, I know the outcome of I2. I know the outcome of I2. I know the outcome of I2. So I know that the branch is taken. So I squash this. So I squash this. And then I fetch the instruction IX, and then I do instruction fetch. So there was a penalty of one cycle. Right? So there was this penalty of one cycle. So this is what we have been studying. So we said that, okay, if the outcome is known, if the outcome is what I predicted, then it's okay, I can continue the execution. So I will allow this instruction tree. If the branch was not taken, there is no penalty because I will allow it to continue execution. But if the branch is not taken, then there is a penalty because I have to fetch. So if the branch is taken, then I have to fetch the target address. So I fetch the target instruction and then continue the execution. So is this clear till now? I mean, is the question clear or is it clear till now? Yeah,
Yes,
just
sir.
answer the poll if you allowed, so I can answer it. Okay, so I think hopefully everybody has understood this. So now the compiler, when converted the program, so the compiler had this program.c. It has converted into this assembly code, and before it creates an executable, right? It can do some kind of optimization on this, This is what you were doing in lab. You said that minus O0 means don't do any optimization. Minus O1 means do level 1 optimization. Minus O2 means do second level of optimization. Minus O3 means do third level of optimization. There is something called OS, optimize it for speed, right? Or I think it's optimized for size. And minus, there are other O flags. So you can actually tell the compiler to do certain kind of optimizations. Let's say you have enabled O3 and it has seen this piece of code and it knows that there's a 1 cycle delay here because you are building the executable for a particular architecture, which means that the compiler knows what kind of architecture you're talking about. So now, do you think the compiler can do anything other than, I think Devishi knows the answer, but other than, does anybody know what can we do here now? If you are the compiler, you are seeing this piece of code, you know that there's a delay stop. What will you do? Can I do something here such that there is no delay slot?
We can execute I1 after I2.
Yes, we can execute I1, I2, right? So I can fill up this particular instruction. I can fill up this instruction in the branch delay slot. Right. So if okay, the question is not about this. Let's say I fill this up. Do you think this instruction will be executed only if the if statement is true? So so let's say I rearrange the instructions, right? Let's say this is my stream of instructions. And if I had, say, if I had R1, R2, R3, and I had an if statement which said R4 is 0, right? And then I go to the target, and there is a delay slot here. Now, if I pull this out, if I pull this instruction out and move it here, am I not putting it inside the if condition? It's like, let's say I had a print statement. I had print hello, and then I had if a is 0, and some set of instructions, right? So the compiler actually looked at this piece of code. And it transformed it into something like this. Because it figured out that there is a delay slot here, and it transformed this piece of code here. So will you be happy with the compiler? Will you be happy with the compiler if it does this rearranging of instructions? Or do you think the compiler is right in doing this? No, right? Why? Because this is printing hello always. Yeah, this is printing hello always. But here it is printing hello only when A is 0. Right? So the compiler is not allowed to do this optimization. Then why are you saying that I can do this kind of optimization? Right? Why am I allowed to do this kind of optimization whereas this kind of optimization is not allowed? What?
Sir, because after even this target, I think this ad will run now.
Yes. Right. So here it's a delay slot. So now let's see the pipeline. Let's say I have the pipeline like this. Right. So this is instruction 2. This is instruction 1, and this is the target instruction, and there is an instruction 3, and this is the instruction target. Right. So now I do instruction. So I am fetching the second instruction decode register fetch, execute memory, and write back. Now I go and fetch the second instruction. I don't allow the pipeline to make any decisions for me. I will always execute this instruction. So I will do instruction decode register fetch execute memory write back. So I am not this I1 will always be executed because it is neither from the target nor from the fall through. It is neither from the target nor from the fall through. And here, by the end of this particular stage, I know from where to fetch. So I will either fetch instruction target or instruction 3. So I will fetch the right instruction here. So I will always fetch the right instruction here because I know by the end of this stage, I know to which instruction to fetch. And whether I will execute I3 or I2 is not whether I will execute I3 or the target instruction is dependent on whether R4 is 0 or not. But whether I will execute this instruction or not is not dependent on whether R4 is 0 or not. This is just I'm filling a delay slot, which means that I am allowing it to execute irrespective of what happens in I2 because this I1 comes off before I2, which means that I will anyway allow this to execute. So I'm not tying this instruction with this instruction. But by doing this, I am doing away with a delay. Is this optimization clear? So this is just an introduction to how compilers work. We'll see 2 more optimizations. We'll not go into detail. Compilers is itself a course, so you will be learning more about such optimizations in the compilers course. Just to give you a flavor that not just everything can be it's not that everything the hardware has to handle. There are some optimizations that the compiler does. It's not just some optimization, compiler does a lot of other optimizations. So that's why you'll be amazed to know that even if you write dumb pieces of code, the compiler is intelligent enough to figure out a lot of things for you and do a lot of optimizations for you. So this is one of the kind of optimizations that the compiler does. Are there any questions regarding this? Okay, let's see another piece of. Okay, go ahead.
Sir, here we are assuming that we had an instruction before that existed.
Yes.
So suppose some add statement is not there, then it won't be able to do this.
Yeah, it won't be able to do. So this is an optimization you ask the compiler to do, but whether the optimization can be applied or not is dependent on the dependent on the code, and it is dependent on the compiler. So you said the compiler, you told the compiler try to do as much optimization as possible. Maybe your instruction stream is like that. Maybe your set of instructions is like this, that you can't do an optimization. It means that there will be no optimization. There will still be a delay slot, which means that now the hardware will pick up and do some kind of branch prediction if the branch prediction is enabled, or it will just pay a penalty of 1 cycle. So what is best that you can do, it is doing, but it's not always guaranteed that you'll do away with delay slot if there is something like this. And in a lot of cases, this might not be possible, which means that there is a ready instruction which is there for me to pluck out and keep it in the delay slot. And generally, this delay slot is not 1 cycle. We have been used to this 5-stage pipeline. Generally, there are like 16 or 17, maybe there are like 16, 17 pipeline stages, or maybe there are like 6 or 7 stages of the pipeline. And the delay slot, the branch instruction itself, the delay slot is around 4 or 5 cycles, which means that I need 4 or 5 instructions to put it in the delay slot so that there is no penalty. So there are too many factors, too many random numbers which we have to pick up, right? So there are too many things that we have to optimize for. So here it's a very basic assumption that there is only 1 cycle delay slot, and the assumption is that there is some instruction available. If the instruction is not available, I will not be able to fill up the delay slot. If the delay slot is more than 1 cycle, maybe I'm able to cover up for 1 cycle, but we don't know what to do for another 2-3 cycles, which means that the hardware should play a role and do some kind of prediction. So we'll see one more instruction. We'll see an instruction which does this. Let's say I had the same let's say I had R1, R2, R3. So now the question is, the compiler has seen this piece of code. This is a fairly a common piece of code. Now the compiler has seen this piece of code and it will go ahead and move this instruction here. Can the compiler do this? Can the compiler move this instruction here?
That might change the behavior.
Yeah, that may change the behavior of the program, right? Why? Because you can see that there is a dependency between these, right? So this R1 is there is a dependency between I3 and I2, which means that I am able to check the condition R1 is 0 only after the add instruction, which means that I2 should be executed. It is not can, it should be executed. It should be executed before I3. So there is no way that I can execute I3 and then I2. So if I push this instruction in the delay slot, then it means that I'm executing I3 and then I2, which means that the R1 I am picking up is some value which was here and not this particular instruction. So I have to execute I2 before I3. So there is no getting away with this fact. So now can the compiler do something? Or do you think the compiler will not do anything and say, okay, there's a delay slot, I can't do anything. So I will just leave it to the hardware to do some kind of branch prediction. If it does good branch prediction, it is great. If it can't do good branch prediction, it is just paying by having a delay or having some kind of stall, right?
But can
So
it
do you
move
think?
the subtract instruction?
Yeah, let's say it moves this subtract instruction, right? Let's say this moves this subtract instruction. Do you think this will work? Okay, let's move it and see what happens. Okay, let's move this instruction and see what happens. So this is the delay slot. So now I move the subtract instruction. So do you think this is the right thing that we did? Okay, I thought I would have motivated you guys by talking about the mechanical engineer, but now you guys have become more silent. So I don't know what happened. Yeah.
No, sir, this is not correct, I think, because
Yeah, but
We
once
will
again,
eventually go here without condition.
yeah, try to be active, try to think about what is happening. So I hope you understood what we did here. This was a very simple thing. We moved something from the top to here. So this instruction was always getting executed. This instruction was always getting executed. And now it is always getting executed here also. So there was no problem. I have not changed anything. I have not changed the program behavior. So this is fine. I can't do the same thing here because I can't just move this instruction here, because I know that the value that I'm checking here should be computed before I can check, right? So which means that I2 should be executed before I3. So somebody told this answer that we will move this subtract instruction here. Yes, okay, this is a one step forward. So we have moved some instruction that was here. Now have I changed the program behavior, or do you think this is okay? So somebody was answering. Can you answer what was the answer that you were trying to answer?
Sir, the subtract instruction will run no matter what the condition is.
Yes, but that was happening here also, right? So here the add instruction is executing
sir,
no matter.
Add instruction was not explicit. Like we had to do it, but for this,
Yeah, here add we have to do it, right? So that's what it is, right? So we had to do the add. So irrespective of whether I execute it here or here, it was not mattering. But here, this subtract should be executed only if R1 is 0. Or is it wrong? Are you reading the assembly code wrong? No, right? So that's not the first problem I have. I have other bigger problem than this. This is not correct, not because it's not correct because of the answer you told, but also because of some other answer. Why is this not correct? So think about this. Does
sir,
this
subtract will not run in the first go also.
no, right? Think about the assembly code. How is the assembly code executing? It comes from top and goes down, right?
Yes, sir. That's why I said that it will not run for the first time also.
Yeah,
at
it
the
will not run
alpha
for the
value.
first time. Yes, it will not. This subtract is not running for the first time. Here, this subtract, it is like do while loop. I don't know how many of you know do while loop. This is, don't use do while loops, but anyway. Right, so this is a do while loop. Why do you use do while loop? Because you want to execute the piece of code once, at least, and then check for the while condition. Right? Whereas if I had a while loop, these instructions will get executed only if the condition is true. Here, these instructions will get executed once, and it will get executed the second time, third time, fourth time, depending on the condition. So it's similar, right? So when I'm in the assembly, you are just writing it this way. So this instruction will get executed always, at least once, and depending on the condition, it will get executed second or third or fourth time. So now here the subtract instruction is not getting executed until I come here. So it means that what I did was wrong. So can I do something to fix this?
Sir, why did you say don't try do while loops?
It's not a good practice. Because it's very, see, the thing is, you should think about, okay, it's just a software, I mean, it's just, maybe it's a personal thing, but maybe it's a software engineering practice. I'm not software engineering guy, but what happens is, like, if when you're looking at a huge pieces of code, the flow should come normally. I mean, the flow should come, you should be able to look at the flow by looking at the piece of code. See, here, I should figure out what is the condition only later, which means that the way I read is difficult. And it also becomes tricky when I use break statements. Right. So let's say I put a do while loop and I put a break statement in the middle. What do you think will happen? Okay, I'll ask you this question. Let's say I put a break statement here. What do you think will happen? Is the break for the loop or the first instance?
I don't know, it could happen anywhere, right?
Yeah. So the thing is, these are the questions that, yeah, of course you can know the answers. I'm not saying you don't know the answers, but these are the things that makes somebody else who's reading the code maybe tougher. Because whatever you can do by using do while, you can do it using while.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but it's just a choice. I mean,
Normal programming like go-to labels are also not.
yeah, go-to labels are also very difficult to
But in
figure out what is
assembly, we
happening,
are
right?
using them everywhere.
No, sorry.
But in assembly, we are using go-to labels everywhere.
Yeah, assembly, we are not expected to write assembly. I mean, you will not be writing assembly ID. So it's okay. The compiler does it, and you more or less, more often than not, you will not be reading assembly code. It's okay. But when you are going in higher constructs, you want to bring all the software engineering practices. There's no software engineering practice for writing good assembly code. It's like that. Yeah, but anyway, I mean, if you're convinced about using do while,
Read
please use
somewhere
it.
that in this assembly, sir, bottom tested loops are preferred more.
Yeah, that is because you are training the predictor, because the predictors are built with just assumption. So you're helping the hardware by doing it, but in today's world, you don't have to worry about it because the compiler will do all the optimizations for you. And I mean, nowhere you are actually writing assembly code as such, right? Unless you are harnessing power performance or trying to find out some security issue or something like that, right? So you want to figure out there's a security thing that you can break into, then you are worrying about security. Yeah, but I think, yeah, I mean, if you want to write, I mean, it's just a personal choice, right? You don't take it for the answer, right? I'm not the right person to be answering it. Anyway, we'll come back to it. So, okay. So now how can I fix this problem?
So maybe add a jump statement to go directly to that.
No, I don't want to add the jump. Okay, where do you want to add the jump statement? Okay, no, I can't do that, right? So let's say I add a jump statement here. If I add a jump statement here, let's say I add a jump statement to say TT and I put this TT here, then it ends serve me any purpose. I can't do that. Anything else I can do? So whoever answers this will get a prize. So hopefully we will get it. So what is
So can you put the subtract between the add and the if?
Hello, we all can leave the class. Sir said that we will have it on Wednesday.